Chair. Since this is our first meeting from the summer, and the summer was busy, there was lots of news. I did post notice of a motion regarding the Futurpreneur program. So there was so I'll start. This was a notice of motion that I gave on Tuesday. So I'll move that, given recent reports that I said taxpayer-funded loans for future entrepreneurs has resulted in $45.9 million in write-offs for taxpayers, and there may be conflicts of interest concern regarding a grant recipient and their relationship to a current senior member of the federal cabinet, the Standing Committee on Industry and Technology undertake a study of the Future Entrepreneur Program comprising of 2 meetings, invite the following witnesses and others deemed appropriate by the committee, and report its finding to the House: Karen Grave-Young, Futurpreneur CEO; Francois-Philippe Champagne, Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada; Mélanie Joly, Minister of Foreign Affairs. So, colleagues, the impetus for this motion comes from an article written by Blacklock's reporter that was published on Monday, September 9th, 2024. And the title of the article is "Write-offs Eclipse $45 million." And the nut of the story is write-offs under a taxpayer-funded, taxpayer-backed loan for future entrepreneurs have cost over $45 million, says a Department of Industry audit. Best-known borrowers for Future Entrepreneur Program include Foreign Minister Mélanie Joly's husband. If you read through this article, the audit in particular, it raises some problems. It suggests that there isn't actually benchmarking data for whether or not the funds are doing what they're supposed to do. So, for me, programs like this are designed, and I'm not talking to filibuster here, I just want to give my thoughts. Programs like this are designed to give young entrepreneurs a heads up. They, given the changes in the Canadian economy over the last several years and where the Canadian economy is going, programs like this should be designed to maximize economic output. They should be measured for success. There should be alterations made to perhaps granting eligibility. That should be done on a regular basis because, as colleagues, we do have a fiduciary responsibility to taxpayers. And, for $45 million worth of write-offs, the article states that it's close to 20%. 20% were in arrears of the loans were in arrears. This is, to me, like if you're sitting on a corporate board, I know some of you have, you would be looking at those numbers and going, maybe we have a problem here. So I would like to, I would like this, look, if there's no problem, the study will show there's no problem. But I would like to determine, A, what the conflict of interest rules are and if they're adequate on this program, and B, also if there needs to be adjustments made to the granting criteria such that perhaps the amount of loans in arrears, that the percentage should go down. So I hope you'll consider this motion in that spirit, the spirit of improving the program. But certainly the news article was concerning for me, and I hope we can dispense of that with a quick study. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Ran Turnbull, and welcome again to the committee. And so the motion has been tabled, and it was sent on Tuesday, so proper notice was given. So we're debating the motion right now. And I have on my list Mr. Patzer, as well as Mr. Généreux, Mr. Turnbull, and then Mr. Massey. Mr. Patzer.
Here we go. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's also a pleasure and an honor to be back on the industry committee. I served actually with my colleague here last time I was on industry as well, and it was a fun committee to be on, so I'm quite happy to be back on industry as well. Also getting used to these new microphones. Took a little while to figure out how to switch to language, but I got that figured out now, so that was good. Nice to see that we were updating some of the equipment around here. But yeah, no, I think this is a good motion. I think just kind of given some of the news that we've been seeing lately around some people that have been able to, I guess, take advantage of relationships, or that just misappropriation of taxpayers' money, I think has been a common theme as of late, and I think this is a good motion. It's a fair motion to make sure that we do right by the taxpayer, but also, as my colleague so eloquently said, do right by young entrepreneurs who are looking to get started down their career path, on their path of choice. So, yeah, I think it's a fair motion, and I would look forward to getting into a study on this as soon as we can.
So next on my list, and welcome, Mr. Patzer, to Indu. Happy to have you on board. So next on my list is Mr. Turnbull. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. So I'm well aware of the organization Futurpreneur. They do great work. It's important, I think, to note that they're a nonprofit organization. They're not a government entity. Although they are funded by the federal government consistently, actually, for quite a number of years. And I think, so previously they were actually the Canadian Youth Business Foundation, CYBF, and they've done great work. I know firsthand because I actually worked in that space for 13 years helping entrepreneurs get started. And they do really incredible work. It's also important to note that the $45.9 million was Futurepreneur's total loan portfolio value, which is not write-offs, as Ms. Rempel-Garner has said, or at least the motion itself implies. I would also like to, say that I think the funding for this organization started in 2001. And there were, or there have been 18,700 or more young entrepreneurs that have benefited from the business support services that Futurpreneur provides, because they don't just provide loans, they provide guidance and support and coaching and peer-to-peer support, which is really important for entrepreneurs to get started. The other thing is that, to my knowledge, and I saw the article that Ms. Rempel-Garner referenced when she was speaking to this motion, that the loan in question, which is a gentleman by the name of Felix Marzel, was made in 2013 and repaid in full. Back when the Harper government was funding Futurpreneur. So I guess when I think about the benefit of this motion right now and what it's claiming, so there's some inaccuracies in the actual motion itself. I think it's implying conflict of interest where if you had received a loan in full and paid a loan in full, I'm not sure why there would be a conflict of interest for a minister who actually served as minister after the loan was issued and repaid. So it seems to me there's an anachronism there. That doesn't really make sense to me. So I don't see the merit in this particular motion to be studied at this committee. I think if members are really concerned about a conflict of interest, they should make a complaint to the Ethics Commissioner's office and have them see if there's enough evidence to actually investigate it. But I don't see how this would be a conflict of interest. Again, the minister wasn't even a minister or in government at the time that the particular loan that's being referenced here was made, and that it was repaid in full. So I don't understand how that could be a conflict of interest. You can't have a conflict of interest in the past before you've actually served as minister. It doesn't make sense. So that's illogical. And I would just say this just feels like an attempt to lump this in with some of the other things that we've been studying and say, well, there's all these conflicts of interest. I think Mr. Patzer said that in his remarks. And I don't think we should be doing that as a committee. I think we should be fact-based. I think we should look at, circumstances and just be honest about what's really going on here. So, yeah, I don't support this motion, but I'll be happy to hear what my other colleagues think.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Turnbull.
Thank you very much, Mr. Turnbull. Now I have Ms. Rempel-Garner.
Chair. So I'm back here. I'm new. So just for my colleague from the block, this was a motion put in place because I was concerned about public funding on a program. So like the gaslighting on it was this motion or that motion. I would like to think among colleagues of all political stripe, I have a reputation for being a bit of an independent thinker, which sometimes works and sometimes gets me in trouble, but nonetheless. The intent of the motion here, colleagues, so first of all, I just wanted to address one of Mr. Turnbull's points. He suggested that there wasn't an issue with the amount of write-offs in this program, and that there are. There's an estimate at least 20% of these programs are in arrears at any point in time, and yes, it is an arm's-length organization, but it is funded from the government. So if or from our, like, within our scope. So if that level of arrears is that high, then we have an obligation through this committee to ask why that's happening, if it could be improved, if the granting criteria could be improved. And, you know, I mean, I could alter the motion if we wanted to talk about conflict of interest, about the man that Mr. Turnbull mentioned, the husband of the Foreign Affairs Minister, who received over $25,000 from the NRC, the National Research Council, while his spouse was a sitting cabinet minister. I mean, we could do that, but, you know, in the spirit of good faith, I'm just saying that this program to me looks like it probably needs a tweak in terms of eligibility to ensure that these write-offs aren't so high. And that's what we should be doing here. Now, with regard to my Blocks colleague, assumption of motive on why we're doing this. Colleagues, ISED is one of the largest distributors of grants and contributions in the entire government, literally hundreds of billions of dollars. Like, seriously, it is the waterfront of direct subsidies to large corporations. Okay, its director generals, its bureaucracy are at very high risk of being captured, both by themselves and also by industry. So it is our job to scrutinize the decisions made on expenditures within the department and whether or not they are providing value add for the Canadian taxpayer. Now, I understand there's a legislative agenda, but we have to balance that legislative agenda, colleagues, with the scrutinization of these expenditures. We have to, because the reality is that Canada is in an inflationary crisis, and part of that inflationary crisis is caused by government spending, large amounts of government spending, large amounts of government deficit spending. And if we are not scrutinizing whether or not that deficit spending has a net positive benefit to the Canadian economy, and ensuring that there are safeguards in program spending to get there, then that has to be part of this committee's mandate. It has to be. Because if we're not looking at what ISED bureaucrats are recommending to the minister, or a lack of accountability, then who is, right? I mean, when I was in cabinet and I had a large grant and contribution, I was on top of every program design. I looked at every funding model. I reformed a lot of our funding models when I started, because I couldn't see the safeguards to ensure value for taxpayer money in some of these things. So I redesigned the programs. And that should be the positive, productive input that parliamentarians of all stripe, including the government members, it's not saying that these programs aren't necessary or that these programs aren't good. It's just saying, how can these be designed that when you have a bureaucracy that perhaps is not willing or doesn't think that it's necessary to give advice up to the minister for changes to program funding, or the minister is not doing it the other way, then that's our job, is to make those recommendations. And for me, a 25% or a 20% arrears rate is high. So, you know, I'm willing for colleagues, if they want to modify this down to one meeting, I'm happy to do that. But colleagues, we should be looking at spending in this committee. We really should be. We should be looking at how much money is going to corporate Canada. Now, to my colleague from the NDP, again, I have, if my colleague would like his motion to go first in terms of study, I also have, since he talked about it, am I allowed to talk about it? Or is that a breach of privilege? Okay,
Yeah, that's
okay, I'm
okay.
just checking. I'll be really honest with you. I mean, the banks had a great week, huh? Like champagne popping the corks. I wish I had, these new mortgage rules with longer debt, higher levels of debt for housing. Great week for the bankers. Great week. So I actually support his motion, and I'd be happy to have it go first if we can also, in spirit, agree that we should be looking at quick little in and out studies on whether or not funding programs are working. I think we should be able to have our legislative cake and eat it too. We can look at bills, but also just say, hey, come in with a few recommendations, ask a few witnesses whether or not they agree with those recommendations, report back to the House quickly, so that my colleague from the bloc said the end is nigh in a different way. Like, we are at the end of this Parliament. We will be going into a campaign at some point. And I think that it behooves us and Canadians who are considering how to vote in the next election to look at recommendations, and even for our own platform development on how to improve some of these programs, so that becomes a productive conversation with Canadians rather than just, you guys, we need to have checks and balances on the fund that's coming out of ISED. It's kind of bad, right? So even if the intent is good, the management has been bad. So management can be fixed with the right type of oversight and recommendation. So I would speak in favor of this motion. Other similar motions, if my colleague from the NDP would like to, or if my colleague from the bloc would like to amend it, I'm fine with that. If my colleague from the NDP would like his motion to go first, I think we could do that too. If we would like to sit for extra meetings, I'm okay with that. But we need to do all of these things. Thank you.
Thank you. MP Chandra.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I think the motion appears to be a bit misleading when it comes to 45.9 million. Two things. One glance at the recent financial reports shows that the outstanding loan from future entrepreneurs, the loan portfolio is around $34 million. And this organization is there since 1996. That is 28 years. During the 28 years, it has given loans worth about $220 million. Even assuming that there's a 20% write-off, it is over a period of close to 30 years. That is write-off about $1.5 million a year on an average. In my previous life, I was involved, I worked in a financial institution funding small businesses. Small, new, first-generation entrepreneurs mostly. So I know the write-offs in that kind of loan, very high-risk loan, is normal. And if it is limited to this amount over a period of 29 years, that is fairly good. There is not just the loans this organization gives, it also gives mentorship. So you can imagine the risk involved, the first generation under the guide of mentorship, small loans. So I think the motion is misleading in my view. The current portfolio is around $34 million. I think it will, with a lot of things pending before the committee, taking up this further, I think is not the productive use of this committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. MP Turnbull, floor is yours.
Well, I have to say I agree with my colleague, Mr. Chandra, that this would be probably not the most productive use of the committee's time, given the fact that, and I know that the Conservatives have touted Futurpreneur. I have a long list of quotes here that I've dug up very quickly on many of the current sitting members on the Conservative benches have claimed and given accolades to Futurpreneur for many, many years. So I could read those into the records. So I know that, we've seen what the Conservative Party does, on these fishing expeditions. I understand sometimes they may be merited, and in those cases I think you've often experienced that our party is willing to work with you and undertake those studies. In this particular case, I don't think this is a good use of the committee's time. So we won't be supporting this. I agree with my colleague, Mr. Garon, that really the committee is here today with our wonderful officials to work through Bill C-27, which we've all agreed for quite some time is a real priority for this committee. Obviously, government legislation generally takes priority. We know that committees are masters of their own domain. We often say that, but we also all recognize that, as Ms. Rempel-Garner said at the beginning of the meeting, that it would be great to eventually study the AI portion of the bill. We've got to get through a considerable number of amendments in order to get to that point. But I look forward to productively working through that process together. And I know we've reached, a bit of an impasse on a key amendment, CPC 9, which I'm hoping to get back to today. So I hope maybe we can get to a vote and move back to discussing C27. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Turnbull.
Mr. Perkins.
I know you'll all be shocked to learn that I support MP Rempel's motion. I'm a little concerned about some of the positions put forward by the Liberal members. Because it's a taxpayer-funded arm's-length body does not mean it's exempt from scrutiny from Parliament. And in fact, we've spent a bit of time on the Liberal Green Slush Fund, which is a foundation arm's length where we've seen almost $400 million of taxpayer money taken for personal interest of Liberal appointees to the board. So it is possible for us to look at that. $390 million, MP Badway, if you want to re-look at the Auditor General's report, I would invite you to do so. Or Mr. Turnbull, sorry. Oh, sorry, it's easy to mix it the direction in terms of the voice. So let's talk about the issue. I'm also concerned that somebody thinks that $35 to $45 million is an insignificant amount of money. That might come from obviously a party that thinks that spending $15 million on potted plants at parties is a valuable taxpayer expenditure. So I won't make any further comments about potted plants. But the loan loss of this organization is huge. I, too, worked for a financial institution for many years. I also have served on boards of financial institutions. Banks do less than 1% loan loss. The BDC, which takes much higher risk for small businesses, which is accountable to this, has about a 2% loan loss. This loan loss is much, much higher and needs examination of what's going on. And MP Massey, we've said there's merit in the credit card study, but we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We've done it before. We can do concurrent studies on things. It's not difficult. This is not asking for a massive amount of committee time, contrary to what some have asserted. The proposal is for 2 meetings, and there is no time set here, MP Massey, about which study comes first in this motion. So that's easy enough to work out once we pass the study motions. I'm assuming that MP Massey would actually move his motion, because right now it's just on notice, and we can't actually deal with MP Massey's credit card study unless he actually puts it forward as a motion rather than just on notice. And the comments of my Bloc colleague, the Bloc has always been concerned about this bill, as we have as well. I'll point out that the government put 55 amendments in this. If the government's concerned about the amount of time it's taken for amendments, maybe they shouldn't have put in such a crappy bill that they had to amend 55 times already and our table dropping. Maybe they should have done their homework first. And I think you'll find as we go through this bill, every single amendment that we've put forward in this bill, every single amendment is a real substantive issue that witnesses have asked for. So to say that somehow we've been delaying it, it is the government, the Liberal members, who spent the 5 of our 10 meetings so far on clause by clause filibustering this amendment and wasting committee time on a filibuster, which I know MP Turnbull continues to want to do to go forward. So instead of listening to a Liberal filibuster and wasting another 5 meetings to put 10 meetings on a Liberal filibuster on CPC 9, I think it's time we get on to some other business that is more pressing, because it doesn't seem pressing to the Liberals to pass this bill when they filibuster every amendment that goes out. So I would ask that my fellow committee members refocus this committee on some work that Canadians want us to do. I said needs to be held accountable for its lack of spending controls on many programs, from the Green Slush Fund to this. And yes, the government needs to be held to account why after 9 years they've done absolutely nothing to deal with the outrageous interest rate and credit card fees that Canadians pay. So I think there's a lot here for us to go on until the government can sort its way out on the inadequacy of the proposed privacy tribunal and filibuster and waste our time for another 5 meetings filibustering this motion. We should do other work.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. I have no other speakers on my list, which brings us to a vote on the motion tabled this morning by MP Ran Turnbull. So, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Turnbull.
Oppose.
Mr. Aria. Mr. Badaway. Mr. Gahir.
Against?
Mr. Van Bynen. Mr. Perkins.
Yes.
Monsieur Généreux.
Oui.
Mr. Patzer.
Yes.
Ms. Rempel-Garner.
Yes.
Monsieur Garon. No. Mr. Massey.
No.
So the motion is defeated.